There's a bit of that, like having confidence in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, who can? But also you have to be a little bit delusional to believe that you're going to just show up into Hollywood and start selling TV shows. That's fucking crazy, and it never happens. And I feel like, again, I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world because I just happened to be at the right place, the right time, and I had surrounded myself with the right people. And my hat's off to Sean Vance. Like, dude, love you to death. He truly incredible Green Beret, really funny dude, currently writing with like Topher Grace and a bunch of other people, like so talented. And he really helped me kind of navigate becoming a normal civilian, because that was a difficult transition for me. I was like, my beard was like down to here. That was my big act of rebellion, was like, I'm out of the army, I'm never shaving again. And he really helped me integrate into society, and totally awesome dude.
You're like, I'm out of the cult, I'm out of the military, I'm having a beard, God damn it.
Yeah, exactly. Hollywood is a cult as well. I would say the third cult, but it's been an upgrade every time, it's a little bit better.
Is that much of it? That's not much of a change for you, right?
My name is Kerry Kite. I used to load bombs in the Air Force, and now I'm a writer, a filmmaker, and an entrepreneur. Through using the post 9/11 GI Bill to go to college, working hourly jobs to pay the bills, and freelancing my way into a career, I've studied what it takes to successfully transition from service to civilian, and that study has become a conversation. On this podcast, I speak to other veterans, successful artists, and entrepreneurs about their transition, what they did well, where they failed, what they learned, and most importantly, how they applied their skills. Episode 157 features Daril Fannin, an Army veteran, cult survivor, and the CEO of KINO TV. We talked about movies and how they shape us. Welcome. This is Veteran Made. Our merch store is live at store.veteranmadeproductions.com. Grab hats, t-shirts, and hoodies in both performance and tri-blend cotton fabrics. Use code VM-5OFF for 5% off your purchase. Veteran Made is also sponsored by GoPills, a military-grade nootropic that contributes to brain health over time. Use code VM15 at checkout for 15% off. I get my collagen protein from Bubs Naturals, where you can use code VETERANMADE, all one word, at checkout for 20% off your order. We're also proud to partner with True Made Foods, which makes condiments free from added sugar and sweetened with real foods. Use code VET at checkout for 15% off. We love socks in this house. I get my wife new socks every Christmas. More importantly, we love American-grown and made socks. Use code VETERANMADE15 at rucksocks.com for 15% off. And lastly, I end my day with Rack Out from Bravo Actual to maintain quality sleep, resulting in a well-rested body and mind. Use code VETERANMADE with a space between the words at checkout for 15% off your order. Enjoy the episode.
All right. Good afternoon from the great state of Ohio for me. Good morning still from the great state of California. Daril Fannin, welcome to Veteran Made.
So stoked to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. Stoked to know you. We just met like a week ago. Super stoked to dive in. You have a fascinating background. I have a friend who grew up in a fundamentalist cult as well. Yeah, a little curious to hear your background, what got you into the military, what got you into filmmaking, and then what got you into what you're building now with KINO. So yeah, man, take it. Start how you want.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I was born in this fundamentalist religious cult. It was a hyper-conservative sect of Pentecostal Christianity. So like tongue speaking, hellfire and brimstone and shit. We had a bunch of crazy rules. Like we weren't allowed to wear shorts, play sports, go to the movies, own a TV. We call the TV the television, And so what ended up happening is I kind of grew up under a rock. We looked a little bit Amish, like women couldn't cut their hair or wear makeup or jewelry or pants or any of that stuff. Guys couldn't have facial hair, which always bothered me because I'm like, every picture you show me of Jesus, he has a beard, what gives? And so basically I was the youngest licensed minister in this group. So I was like a true believer. I was bought in. My dad was a pastor, completely wrapped up in this. And around the age of 17, I realized not everybody grew up speaking in tongues and burning science books. And I was like, okay, maybe there's more to life. And so I went to my buddy, Andrew, and I was like, hey, dude, I know you listen to Linkin Park. You're definitely going to hell for that. You watch movies. I want to watch some movies. And so we snuck out to Blockbuster together, and he insisted that we watch this movie called The Matrix, which, if you've seen The Matrix, broke my freaking mind because this was the metaphor of my life playing out on screen. I was like, the most incredible action movie, but also it was literally this person who was living in this false reality and was constrained by all these rules that they had made up in their own mind. And I was just like, I watched that movie and I was like, oh no, I believe a bunch of crazy shit. And so I joke and say that I red pilled from there into the US Army. But the truth is the journey was a little bit slower than that. Like I for about a week, I stayed at his place and we would rent movies from Blockbuster on DVD, put them in the laptop, and we each shared an earbud, and we would watch these movies. And I watched Saving Private Ryan. I watched We Were Soldiers. I watched Tarantino and Scorsese and all these incredible filmmakers and movies. And I just really felt compelled to join the military. It was a way for me to get an education. It was a way for me to have insurance, which I didn't have, like all of those basic fundamentals. And I also knew that I needed a really rigid structure. And in my heart of hearts, and I don't tell this often, but I wanted to be a PJ. I wanted to be a pararescueman. And so I had done a bunch of physical stuff. I went and took the PAST and actually passed, which is that physical aptitude test. And it turns out the Air Force wouldn't take me because I was homeschooled and I didn't have a legitimate degree, from an institution that they accepted. And somehow I bumped into an Army recruiter and they were like, well, the Army will take you. And I was like, perfect. So I decided to be a combat medic and I enlisted at 17. Kind of crazy because my parents also, they had to, sign for me to join, even though they were conscientious objectors, which I always find like kind of fascinating. And so I enlisted at 17 and the Army was a lot like the environment that I'd grown up in. We all were dressing the same, following the same stupid rules. So while everybody else was like this transformative, I've lost my freedom moment, I was experiencing freedom like I had never had before. You know what I mean? And so it was this very interesting juxtaposition. And I really enjoyed the military. I loved being a leader. Like I felt in my heart that was something that I always wanted to do. Hence being a minister in the UPC. I just felt like I really enjoyed leading people and encouraging people to achieve their best. And so I was the PG, I was the student first sergeant in AIT in medic school. And I was like, I was listening to the drill sergeants and one of them just was ranting about this thing called the Soldier of the Year competition. And I was like, okay, well, check, I'm just making a to-do list of how to get promoted as fast as possible. That seems like the right move. And so I ended up going into the National Guard after my first little bit. I did a tech job at first where I was like a medical readiness NCO, and then in an NCO slot. And then I ended up, doing an AGR program. And I just fell in love with the military. I fell in love. I was like, I'm going to be a lifer. I'm going to do 20 years. I was the Soldier of the Year and the Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year for the state of Tennessee, which opened up just a ton of doors. And I'll never forget, I found myself in the Pentagon sitting across the Army from the Sergeant Major, Kenneth O. Preston, the Sergeant Major of the Army, and he knife-handed me. And he was like, Fannin, you need to go to college and get a degree. And I was like, okay, Sergeant Major, whatever you say. And so when I realized that the Army didn't really care what my degree was in, I decided to get a degree in screenwriting because movies literally changed my life and I love storytelling. And as I was, sitting in the back of Bradley's typing out screenplays and, all that stuff, I eventually realized like, dude, I love this, I think even more than I love being a soldier. And so in 2014, I made this crazy leap where I was like, hey, I'm going to get out of the Army. I don't know anybody in Hollywood. I don't have any connections, but I'm going to go to film school and I'm going to go and I'm going to make a show and I'm going to sell a show and I'm going to make film and television. And so in 2014, left the military, came out to LA where I was weird as shit because I had grown up and went like straight from the cult into the US Army. So like didn't really understand Hollywood, the civilian culture. I was going back to school feeling like the old guy, I'm looking around at these kids who don't even remember. Like I had one of my first classes. I was talking to this kid about how influential 9/11 was to me. And he just looked at me and was like, I don't even remember that. And I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm in a whole new world. But it was amazing, man. I got into LA and that kind of opened up my opportunities. And I started, reaching out to the veteran network and trying to figure out how I was going to integrate back into the civilian world after 9 years of identifying as a soldier.
Yeah, man, lots of impact there. I'm not sure if you know my background at all and my connection to the pararescue community. I enlisted in the Air Force to be a PJ, went to boot camp, went to Indoc, made it all the way through selection, got injured, and got knocked out of the pipeline, unfortunately. So my transition journey, was like really about kind of learning to fall in love with my service and kind of why I was there outside of the cool guy shit that I thought that I was going to do. Interesting to hear that was not a lot of people like actually knew about PJs back then.
I know, dude, it's crazy. I feel like they are the most badass, and you get the least amount of coverage of all the special forces, like literally the Superman school. You're doing everything that everybody else is doing. And I loved the idea. I had read, what was there was a book that I had read, and I can't believe I'm blanking on it right now. But basically at 17, library was the one place that my parents would let me run around. I don't think they realized how much crazy shit was in the library. But I had gotten this book about a pararescueman, and I was just like, this is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be there when there's hopelessness and somebody's been shot down. And, it just spoke to me, like I was very much drawn to the kind of like being there as a help in the time of like the greatest desperation of someone. I thought that was the coolest job ever.
Yeah, they have the most honorable mission in the DoD for sure. I want to go back a little bit. So, like, did you kind of maintain any sort of religious or spiritual belief, or did you like leave it completely when you left?
Question. Yeah, it came for me in phases. Like, I started out as far into the realm of crazy as you can probably get in Pentecostalism. I didn't personally drink poison or handle snakes, but I knew some people that did. You know what I mean? And so I wasn't quite that crazy, but I think like it was a very slow unraveling for me. So the things that bother me, like the facial hair I mentioned, Jesus had a beard, what gives? We had a lot of rules against like wine and alcohol and drinking. And I'm like, they're talking about these fermented bags, like there was no way of keeping wine from fermenting. Like, how are we processing this? And so I started asking questions, and I think like, I maintained a very strong sense of my faith, probably until I got out of the military. And then I remain what I consider a hopeful agnostic. So I know how stupid I am, right? I know a fraction of a percent of the information in the known universe, and the unknown universe is so much larger. So to sit here and confidently tell you that I know anything, I think is a farce. And for most faiths, actually, the whole point of faith is that it is the evidence of the things that's not seen. It is about belief in something that is larger. And so for me, I consider myself very much a hopeful agnostic today, where I believe that there is something more. I feel better and I live better when there's a higher moral calling. Almost all of my moral guidance comes from the Christ teaching, loving your neighbor as yourself, like those basic principles that I found very valuable. But there was a lot of reinterpretation of this ancient wisdom that I find quite toxic and unhealthy, and like a modern version of capitalism that's been repackaged to control, and that bothered me intensely. So I still consider myself a spiritual person, but not in the flavor at all of what I was born into. There's none of that hate, that control, I think. And I don't think that it's even intended by those individuals. I think they're very sincere people that are involved in these organizations who truly believe that they're doing the right thing. And I love them deeply through that. I just personally cannot fathom looking at someone and honestly telling them they're going to burn in hell for eternity because women wear pants or cut their hair or wear jewelry like the Bride of Christ did, all those kind of things that I'm like, yeah, this is very legalistic and toxic and not a part of my identity.
Yeah. What about your folks and your family? Like, how did it, you said that they obviously being conscientious objectors, they still had to sign. So they obviously signed for you to join at 17. Like, what was your relationship like with them at that moment? And how did that relationship progress?
All right. I'm going to try not to cry. But I am so proud of my family and my parents. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're not going to shame. I'm so proud of my parents because we were really tight. Like we lived on like $600 a month because the church did not compensate its people appropriately. And so my parents' bedroom, living room, kitchen, and dining room was all in one room. My brother and I split half of a Sunday school room as a bedroom. So when it came to my family, we were as tight as you could possibly be. And it was very difficult for me when I started questioning these things, because I knew that just to question was considered a sin in our crazy beliefs. They had this thing called the umbrella doctrine. And so if you challenged the person above you who had God's umbrella of authority, then you were somehow an evil person. And so for me, I knew that I loved my family and I wanted to bring them out. And I knew that they were the most important thing. And so it created this really interesting phase where I was questioning things and I was very loud about it. And my dad and mom would both have these kind of fear responses, afraid that I was going to be tortured for eternity for just having some very obvious questions. And my brother, on the other hand,
questions there back in the first century.
Yeah, exactly. And my brother, he was amazing, because where I was loud and just shouting from the rooftops, this isn't right, he was just quietly doing his own thing. And so where my parents and I, we basically came to this point where I was like, Dad, I can't believe all of these things. And, he had this big emotional reaction that I recall, where he was just like, you can't do this. He was just afraid that I was going to go to hell. And he was like, I can't be around you. I can't see you doing this. Like, you need to get away. And I was like, Dad, please don't abandon me here. Like, let's talk about these things. And so he set up a debate between me and the presbyter of the state of Tennessee, who I will not name just in case someone ends up listening to this. But that guy, he was one of the more educated individuals. I think he had a bachelor's degree, which was far above most of the individuals that were in leadership at that organization. And I started with some very basic things like facial hair and, like the clothing regulations and all these things that didn't make sense. And when he couldn't defeat my logic, he began to attack my character. And that was very much, the fear mechanism and loop that I think my father had seen. And so I will never forget this moment. My dad just stepped up and he was like, hey, I don't necessarily agree with everything that Daril is saying. I don't know what I believe here, but what I know is that you cannot attack his character, because these are like godly based questions. These are things that actually matter. And I think we should have a conversation around it. And I'm so proud my family actually got out of that environment entirely. They had to reinvent themselves. Almost everyone they knew immediately cut them off and stopped talking to them. This was a dad who was a pastor. So at 50 years old, my dad reinvents himself. He goes and gets an assistant job. He's working in a bakery as an assistant, making more money than he ever made for the church. Yeah. And my mom and my dad completely reinvented themselves. They are very entrepreneurial. So they ended up buying out this little coffee shop that was it was failing. They were losing tens of thousands of dollars a year, and they ended up turning that into a profitable business. And so they've since, like, I think at 50 years old, they were going to water parks for the first time because that was a sin. Like, they were living these amazing experiences, which was so incredible. And then my brother, he was like, where I was like sneaking out and renting movies, he was actually pirating films. So he downloaded, I don't know, thousands of films and TV shows and anime, and he was just absorbing all these things. And he actually got sent a cease and desist letter from the FBI. And he was like scared to death. So he, drilled holes in all of his hard drives and got rid of it all and was like, I'm done. But it was really an interesting thing, because where I was so loud and fighting, David just like internally rebelled, but he didn't think it was worth causing all the fuss. He was just like, live your life, dude. Who cares? But I'm really proud of my family for getting out. And they supported me so much through not only my military career and all those choices, but also moving out to LA, where I didn't know anyone. I didn't really have a plan, to be honest. I was very foolish. I was just like, hey, I'm going to move out and it's going to work out. I'm going to show up in Hollywood and start making TV. And they supported that wild, crazy dream. And I feel so fortunate that it actually worked out.
When you got to the Army, did you call your brother and be like, David, there's this thing called the morale drive. We have all of the movies, all of the TV shows.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I did not think about that. David's going to be pissed at me. Yeah, that's right. We should have done that for sure.
That's funny. That's really cool, man. I appreciate you opening up and sharing that stuff. I know you said that you're proud of them, but how does it make you feel to look back on that and be a catalyst for so much change in your family's life? Like, are you the oldest, or is David older than you?
I am the oldest. I'm the oldest by 2 years. Honestly, dude, I feel so lucky. Like, there are an infinite number of perfectly timed breaks where I was able to challenge my own paradigm. And I try to live this change and model the change, because I think that was really important. And I feel so fortunate, man. Like, my parents are such amazing people. I think it is such a testament. My mom, as a great example, we had a lot of these hard conversations, at one point she was like, you know what, I've spent the last 20 years, because they both voluntarily joined this organization. That's the other thing. Like, late teens, both kind of needing some like familial comfort, and they found it in this very odd group of people. But they made the choice to join this group. And so for them to be willing, for my mom to be willing to say, hey, you know what, I've spent the last 20 years trying to prove myself right. I'm going to give myself a week to try and prove myself wrong. And within that week, she deconstructed her entire like faith. It was so amazing to say, like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of toxic stuff that I don't need. There's some good things that I'm going to keep, but the majority of this I don't need. And I feel very honored to have been a catalyst in that moment. And I think I feel very lucky because the majority of people lose their families. Like, that's it. You're done. I'm cutting you out. And I think it speaks to their love and their empathy. And I'm so proud, and I feel so lucky.
Might even say providential, right?
Yeah. Hey, amen, brother.
I think it's interesting, man. Right? Like in this left-right culture, in this atheism believer culture that we live in, you look at. I'm a pastor's kid. My dad was, definitely conservative, but and I am too in a lot of ways, right? Like, my politics and kind of culture all over the place. As people who listen know, like, I will get into fights and arguments and disagreements with just about everybody on the entire spectrum, and I enjoy it, right? I don't gotta lie about that. But we live in this culture where my dad was like very, I wouldn't even use the word very. My dad was conservative, small c conservative, like had his beliefs. He actually left. He didn't leave the church, but he left the pastorship when I was young, and he was still like a teaching elder in some of these churches. And so I grew up, going to adult Sunday school and like listening to him teach. He wasn't preaching, but he was teaching. And he passed away last year. And like right up into the end, we were having these conversations. But he was always very open about everything. Like, my brother's 6 years older than me. We could sit across the dinner table from him. We smoke cigars and drink bourbon. We could sit across the fire pit, have a bourbon, a beer, a glass of wine, and not even like challenge specific beliefs, but just have a conversation about anything. Like, I could talk to my dad about anything. And as I talk to other people who have come from, much more conservative bents of evangelical Christianity or Catholicism, or, even I mentioned my friend who's a, weekly listener, so he'll hear this episode and like it. Like, people who come from these like really hardline cult, like, or actual cult environments, like, that's just something that they don't understand. And you're underscoring that, where like people lose families, like people lose entire connections, not just the connection to this thing that you had in your life for a certain period, whether it's a decade or 2 or 3 or 4, but then like you're cut off completely. And so this idea in this culture now of like, hey, I have these beliefs and these are the things that I believe. And I maybe don't agree with you here, there, or everywhere, but let's have a conversation about things, especially in a family, and especially in a faith-based family. It's a real bummer that those things happen. You talked about your mom and dad making that choice of their own volition in their late teens. Like, people don't understand about cults. Like, cults don't actually find like people who are vulnerable and like brainwashable. They actually just find normal people and convince them of these things, because those are the people that if they're to be convinced, are actually gonna, stick around and maybe grow it. And so, I'm glad to hear about you, and glad to hear about your family. And it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, that it's so true when you think about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you're thinking about the things that are fundamentally important, this base layer of like community and belief and all of these things are kind of wrapped up in your identity. My identity was completely wrapped up in that. And what I found was, maybe in not such a healthy way, I immediately transposed and, okay, I'm no longer this, so I'm now a soldier, And so at 17, my email was Cav Medic, and that's what it is today. I'm like, my identity shifted, and I was like, okay, I'm no longer this, I'm now a uniform. And I don't think I realized how valuable it was for me to have that identity shift and being able to shift that. But for my parents, it was something that they didn't have. And I think like at 17, to be able to go into the military, to be sent on these like new mission, new purpose, new everything, I had a really easy transition. My parents, though, they had to generate that for themselves. Yeah. And I'm just like, again, you're half a century old and you're making this choice. Like that's not an easy jump to make.
And
I think, yeah.
Oh, good. No, go ahead. Oh,
I was just going to say, I think that the fact that we were able to have all of those kind of open, real, hard conversations, my parents, my dad and I have the same kind of relationship where I feel like I could literally call him up and talk about literally anything. I could say any crazy shit. And I know that this is a bedrock of love that will not be shaken. And I think that's something that our society needs because, you kind of talked about, we're all walking around wearing these labels, left, right, Democrat, Republican, libertarian, Christian, atheist, whatever. Most of that is very, very superficial at the end of the day. When you think about the things, the core beliefs that we actually have, the overwhelming majority of our society has more in common than we do that is disparate. And I think that we really need to find ways of reminding ourselves that even though we don't agree about everything, there's a lot of commonality there.
I mean, we're all searching for identity, right? The reason we have a meaning crisis is because we have an identity crisis. And it's because all of these different organizations based on these belief structures have fractured over the course of the last 2,000 years. I'm even talking about like just religious. If you look at the birth of Christ as the kind of beginning of the West, right? Over the course of the last 2,000 years, things were built and then fractured and then rebuilt and then fractured and then rebuilt and then fractured. And normal people, like, if you look at it politically, it's an easier one. If you look at it politically, people in this country agree on 80% of the issues. 20% of the issues are what drive the headlines, right?
Well, and I would point out that those 20% of the issues aren't actually core issues to the majority of Americans. Like Correct. When we think about the way that this is working, and it's a manipulation from both sides, but it's a manipulation of our emotional attitudes, because that is what drives us to action. And one of the things that I find, not to get too political here, but one of the things that I find really interesting is in the last decade, I have watched people who I used to believe in hardcore freedom, like people who would identify as libertarians, who are now much less on the side of individual freedom and liberty and the right to do whatever the hell you want to do, because this is America and that's the way it should be. And we're seeing a strong morality shift where people are trying to impose their own thoughts, opinions, and beliefs on others. And it's just such an antithesis to the freedom that we are supposed to have, and liberty and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think it's very interesting because we've created these sort of like social faux pas and bombs that we know that if you are on the other side now, suddenly I hate you, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to have anything to do with you. And the reality is that most of that is manufactured and being driven with a corporate agenda behind it. And I think the revolution that we need in the United States right now is to understand that this is a divide, not of a left and right, but this is really a classist issue. And we need to focus on that as libertarians, as Republicans, and as Democrats, that this is an issue of corporate control. The idea that corporations can write our laws. It's not lobbyists anymore who are paying somebody under the table to write a law, but they're actually co-authoring bills. That's a huge fucking problem, and we all need to be enraged about it, and we all need to be doing something about it.
Yeah, amen, brother. I'll echo that. All right, before we get to Los Angeles and your journey there, like one more thing from your background. Tarantino very famously said, "I didn't go to film school. I went to the theater. I went to film." Right?
Yeah.
You had it sounds like a week-long boot camp of film. You mentioned Tarantino and Scorsese and all these movies. What was it truly like for you to have that exposure in such a short burst of time, starting with The Matrix and then all these other movies you watched?
Dude, it was the most mind-boggling thing because, most people would go to a movie theater, and every year, every summer, there would be like 3 to 4 awesome films that you would see. I sat down and for a week straight was just hit with banger after banger after banger. And I was just like, my world opened up. And I honestly credit it to part of the reason that I feel like I understand structure kind of internally is that I was old enough to be able to process the hero's journey, the monomythic arc that underlied most of these films. And I was able to see all of these things. And then what I loved about Tarantino is that he ended up turning so many of these things on his head. So like where other people really embrace the form, what I really found amazing was that my favorite filmmakers took these ideas and took that expectation and subverted it in a really cool way. And so for me, it was like a week-long mind fuck where I was just like, this is the most incredible form of storytelling. I had no idea that I would become a writer or a filmmaker or be involved in any of that. I just remember going like, this is the coolest shit ever. I want to consume more. And so while I was in the military, like one of the things that I absolutely loved was the hurry up and wait. Dude, anytime it was a wait, I was like, great, I'm watching I've like got MASH on in my in our aid station, I'm consuming film, television, it didn't matter. I was just always watching and consuming. And then what really became interesting is that at some point I decided I had some of my own ideas and I would start writing them. And so like I have a few core memories as early as basic training where, you're always running around with pen and paper. And so I was just like, oh, you know what? I'm going to start sketching out some ideas. And so I just started throwing down some crazy characters or a scene that would come to me. Again, not thinking about it being like a film or I was just like, oh, this is really interesting. I wonder what happens. And then I accidentally wrote like 100 pages of a novel and I was like, uh-oh, I might be a writer. Like there's something interesting here. And it's so cool to see how that 1 week of exposure changed my life inevitably. Like movies changed my life. The power of storytelling is the most important thing that we have as a community. And I liken it, it's not me, there's many more brilliant individuals than me, but liken it to the days of sitting around the campfire and sharing these stories. And what I love about almost every mythic structure and every myth, these great stories of great importance to every culture finds itself enshrined, not necessarily in the historical accurate detail, but in the underlying message of perseverance, of love, of judgment, of brain fart. What is that? What is it called? Reconciliation, redemption. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, dude, that was another R word. It was there. Yeah. But the point is that these really important stories across every culture were shared in such a powerful way. And I was like, oh yeah, this is just our version of that. That's what film and TV is to our generation. And what I find really, really interesting is that we're in this moment, and I'm jumping ahead, but we're in this moment where storytelling is shifting. And I perceive that we're spending now hours a day scrolling instead of watching the TV like we used to. But I imagine that there's going to be a new form of storytelling that's going to arise, and we're going to start sharing these stories in a different way. And what I really genuinely hope is that we get back to the human connection side of things, because that's the piece that I found so valuable. What I loved about the sermons and the altar calls was that this was an emotional opportunity for a group of people to come together and change their lives. And that's kind of a call to action that you get underlying message in a lot of film and TV and other mediums.
Yeah, so we've done that in the home. So we have a 5-year-old and we have a 3-week-old tomorrow.
Congrats, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, you met her the other day on the call. So our 5-year-old, like, we only use a tablet in the car for like road trips. We road trip a lot. So that's kind of the only time she can ever watch like episode after episode after episode of something, or like play games or whatever. We don't do tablets in the home. And then we don't let her just like veg around on the couch by herself and just like watch episode after episode after episode. Sometimes we'll do that with like Bluey or kind of some of the other ones that are good that we've like vetted.
I love Bluey, dude. I'm sorry, just quick interjection here. I'm working on with a friend to help create a children's TV show, and that is the #1 comp that I always give. Just such a great basic, like, play is the metaphor, it is theme, it is fun. The parents are shown in a positive light, which doesn't always live. Like, it's so amazing.
Yeah. So what we do is like my wife and I are like, all right, you're gonna watch movies with us. Like that's what your screen time is, right? We'll see it when it gets to the winter. We live in Columbus, Ohio, where my daughter does love the snow, but it also doesn't snow all the time. So when it's cold as hell, it's really going to test my ability to take her outside and play, kind of all the time. But like right now, spring and summertime and into the fall, it's like, we're sports family. So like you can watch sports with us. Watch a movie on Friday nights. If it's a rainy afternoon, we'll sit down and watch a movie together. But like we're showing her the old childhood movies that we loved, right? Like, like she's on a sports kick right now because she played, T-ball and is kind of getting into some other stuff. So we showed her Little Giants the other day. We showed her The Big Green.
Watch that as an adult. It's a great freaking film.
Angels in the Outfield, which like, falling, I'm like, oh my, as a dad watching that movie. And it's just like, so we've taken that aspect of what you're describing that culture isn't doing, and we've tried to institute it here in the house, which is you're not a scroller, you don't have a tablet, you don't have a phone, you're not going to for a very long time. We're going to hold that off as much as possible. But like what we do is like we're filmmakers, her mom and I, and we're also film fans. So it's like, no, you sit down and watch. Dude, perfect example. So 4th of July in the neighborhood that we live in Columbus is like, it's a week-long thing. It is like from Saturday to the next Sunday. It's like a thing. There's a big parade. People have block parties. So on the 4th, my wife was obviously very, very pregnant. So we went to the parade in the morning. We went to a neighbor's house for like a little party kind of before and after. Then we went to another block party. My wife came home and like rested for a little while. And then my brother, his wife and his kids and my daughter, we went out to more block parties and like ran around and just like, we ran the kids ragged, dude. They were just going up and down these water slides 500 times, like having a blast. And so we get back home before the sun is going down and we're like, all right, what are we going to do for the fireworks? She's not quite old enough to like hang until 10 o'clock at night after a day like this. So we like ordered some pizza. We let her go choose something for herself to go watch in the basement. And we're watching Independence Day with Will Smith and Bill Pullman, right? It's the July 4th. We got to watch it, right?
Must. Every 4th. It's a must.
It ages super well, just so you know. Like, it's like even the CGI is not bad. Like, there's a handful of shots you're like, okay. But like for 1996, pretty incredible. So she moseys her way up because she wants to be with us. And like 20 minutes into the movie, and she goes, hey, what are you guys watching? So I paused it, and I was like, it's kind of a scary movie. There's like some aliens, and, she's like, is that the military? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, at the Air Force? I was like, it's the Navy, but like, whatever. She knows what I did.
we won't ding it too hard.
He's like, I want to watch it with you. And so I looked at my wife and I'm like, I mean, I don't remember this movie being that bad. So like, let's give it a shot. Dude, she sat next to us. I fast forwarded through Vivica A. Fox doing the striptease dance at the strip club. She doesn't need to be knowing what that is right now. But outside of that, 30 seconds, we watched the entire movie. She kind of got scared one time, but then opened her eyes and then watched in the Area 51 scene when they're like down there, and what's his name? Data from Star Trek he's the scientist thing, and he kind of talks, and she was like more intrigued. She sat and watched the whole movie. All of that to illustrate is like, hey, it's a national holiday. It's a national treasure of a movie. Like we're doing it together as a family, and like we're sitting there, and she kind of got to do something a little bit above her pay grade, right? As a 5-year-old, she got to watch this cool adult movie with her parents, and it was just, I hope so, And I look back and I'm like, man, like, yeah, this is what we do. We sit and watch a movie as a family, and then we turned it off and goofed around for a little bit, went and watched the fireworks from our driveway, went to bed, and like, I look back, I'm like, man, what a day! Like, what a day! And it culminated with a movie. It was great.
Yeah. Dude, I love it. I really do feel like I also, I have some nieces, and I love when we get to watch some slightly age inappropriate films with them as well. Because you're just like, my youngest niece, Harper, she's a little rebel, and she's always looking to be scared and whatever, and so she really, really enjoys it. But Addie and Harper both are amazing, and I love being able to sit down and watch films with them, Jurassic Park and, all these kind of things that are like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I like such a seminal film that I would have loved to have had a pizza night and party at, with my family at that age. So it's so cool.
My brother and I took his father-in-law and him and me went to take my nephew to see the new Fantastic Four movie the other day, and they come to pick me up from the house. And my niece, who's my daughter's age, is sitting in the back of the car. My daughter was out with her grandma doing a theater day. She went to a play with her grandma, which was fun. Nice. So she didn't get like wholly left out of this. But I got in the car and I was like, I was like, hey, like what's going on? She's like, I want to do this with the boys. Like, I don't normally like these superhero movies, but like mom asked me if I wanted to go with her. And I said, no, I want to go with the boys. And she sat next to me, watched the entire thing. My brother left to go get her a cup of water, like, during one of the down scenes in Fantastic Four. And she taps me on the shoulder. And I was like, what? And she goes, I love this movie. I never like these movies. I love this movie. And it's because she was like with her family, with her uncle, with her dad, with her brother, with her grandpa. Like, dude, it's just like you're talking about being around the fire and communal and sharing these things. Like, these images are burned into celluloid. It's digital now, but it, like, the metaphor translates. Yeah. So listen, we've got how much more? Do you have a hard stop in 18 minutes?
I don't have a hard stop. Maybe like 28 minutes. I do have a hard stop.
Cool. Let's roll.
I've got about 10 minutes there. Yeah.
Well, I love this conversation, but I do want to get into some of the meat of getting to LA, and let's talk about that first project. And then let's chat about your learnings and the different things that you're observing in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. So came to LA again, just green right out of the Army, like literally got out on the 30th or the end of the month, and then came here the 1st. So July 2014, and was going to Loyola Marymount to get my master's degree. So I was really trying to like get back in, and I knew I had to one, build a network, and I needed experience because, in the Army, my last couple of years, I bought a camera and I was shooting fun reels and stuff like while I was in the Army, because why not? There's all this opportunity, but I had never really, I'd done a couple of short films, but I'd never really shot a full, TV show, film, anything like that. So I came in, I got in with this group, Greg Bishop and Brian Chung at Musa Consulting. They were just setting up this company called the All Warrior Network, and they were trying to build a social following there. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to come in. I was an intern for free for almost 2 years, dude. And it was the most incredible experience because I learned so much. Like, the camera assistant didn't show up one day, and then I was learning about the cameras. The sound guy didn't show up, and I was laughing people up and like trying to figure that out. And I think they kind of realized that I was able to handle responsibilities, and so they would just throw things at me with a ton of trust. And I got to give them props, because there's no way in retrospect that I would have just sent somebody, hey, here's a bunch of lavaliers. We're shooting on an airport where you definitely cannot use certain frequencies. Knock yourself out. I would try to control that too much, but I got a ton of experience. They were doing a movie that was premiering at South by Southwest called K-Town Cowboys, and I ended up creating like these 3D logos for them. So I like learned Cinema 4D, and I was just getting experience in all of the different areas of filmmaking. And at the same time, I was going to school at Loyola, one of the best programs. Just a quick plug. It's a 3-year program, but they don't own your work. So if you go to USC, if you go to a lot of these other places, the school ends up having rights around your work. This is not something that Loyola did. And it was a 3-year program instead of a 2-year master's program. And so my whole goal was like GI Bill. They had a yellow ribbon program that covered everything. So I was like, gravy, I'm making BAH in LA prices, which is fantastic. But then you're paying rent at LA prices. I had a 450 square foot studio that I was living in, and it was like $1,800 a month. And I was just like, going to school, doing all of that. And then halfway through that program, while I was labbing, one of the guys that I was labbing up turns out was a Green Beret, and he was hilarious. He came out to study at UCB in Groundlings. He was a really funny dude. His name was Sean Vance. And I was like, hey, dude, I think you're funny. He was like, yeah, I've always wanted to write some things. And I was like, dude, I'm going to film school. I've been writing for a decade. Like, I'll teach you how to write. You teach me how to be normal. I was a way better teacher. And we started hanging out and writing. And it was crazy because I was going to school full time, but almost all of the writing that I was doing was not on schoolwork. Like, I was putting in dozens of hours every week, just ripping out scripts with Sean. And Sean ended up getting this gig. And if anybody wants to know the secret to breaking into Hollywood, I'll give it to you. It's find a friend who works at a celebrity gym, because Sean ended up getting this gig where he started getting these people ready for these iconic roles, like John Krasinski for 13 Hours, Bradley Cooper for American Sniper. So these major transitions, but also then he was doing like up-down drills and teaching people how to do reloads and shoot, move, communicate, all that kind of stuff. And that led to a bunch of crazy work. Like I got to shoot a bunch of footage that's actually in the movie Death Wish. So Bruce Willis gets online, learns how to use a gun. I shot all that footage. Sean was actually the guy that is in there teaching the classes. So he's in there. We trained a lot of the actors on how to shoot. We took them out to this range out here, Terran Tactical, which is where John Wick, when Keanu got ready for John Wick, that 3-gun. And so I just got in this world, again, no credit, no pay, just, trying to build value. And Matt Damon, Sean ended up getting Matt Damon ready for Bourne. And Sean and I, at the same time, we had gotten one of our scripts was like potentially going to be optioned. We had gotten some representation, and Matt found out, and he was like, "What am I, chopped liver?" And we were like, "No." We just didn't want to abuse the relationship, because everybody in their world is coming in with a big ask. They're like, "Hey, what can you give me?" Everybody's got that take energy, and we just really wanted to have the give energy. And so Matt ended up reading a script of ours called Glutes. It was about a Hollywood gym known for turning asses into stars. And he was like, "This is hilarious, but everybody here has been into a Hollywood gym. You guys have to come up with something that is truly unique to you that no one else can do." And so Sean and I went back and we came up with this idea, and we said, well, we've got this idea, this script. It's called The Green Beret's Guide to Surviving the Apocalypse. And it's about the end of the world, and it's an anthology series. So the world ends in a different way in every episode. Nuclear attack, super volcano, pandemic. And the key is that the lead breaks the fourth wall and tells you how to actually survive. So you're going to close your eyes and open your mouth for that first concussive blast. We're going to teach you how to go to CVS and get trash bags and activated charcoal and duct tape and build a hazmat suit. And Matt was like, "This is fucking crazy. I've never heard of any TV like this. It's so fun." And so he set us up, and we went into WME to pitch. They set us up with Peter Berg's company, which talk about a military veteran loving individual. And Pete was amazing. And so we ended up selling the show to Netflix. They bought it in the room, which was absolutely insane. That never happens. I was actually driving Matt's Tesla back to his house because I had never driven an electric car before. And he was like, "You're going to put it in insane mode. We're going to rock it." But then we were on Santa Monica. So we were actually going 20 miles an hour the whole way. We didn't get to really go anywhere. But he was giving us this big spiel about how we need to manage our expectations. We're talking a fraction of a % of the pitches actually get bought. It'll take us months. And then while he's giving us this big spiel, we get a call from our agent. They bought it in the room. They were calling him in 5 minutes with a formal offer. So Matt's screaming. He's slapping Sean, who's in the back seat. I'm trying not to cry because I'm a big emotional ball of feelings, and I'm just thinking about how crazy it is that I went from not being able to watch movies to making TV with Matt Damon while I'm still in film school. And Matt FaceTimes my mom and dad to tell them that we sold the show, and my mom did not even know who he was because she had never seen any of his movies, which was so amazing. Matt's wife Lucy popped champagne. Matt may not remember this moment, but this is a life-changing moment for me, because one of the kindest people I have ever met. He and Jimmy Kimmel both. I went on and wrote a pilot with his arch nemesis, Jimmy Kimmel, about Sean's family, actually, which was really amazing. But truly kind, empathetic humans. I think he saw Sean and I kind of like him and Ben, when they first moved out and they were trying to make their big break in Hollywood. And I am forever grateful to Matt. And that opened up the world. And suddenly I went from a kid in film school to a guy who was writing, acting, and executive producing his own show for Netflix. And it truly changed my life and my career opportunities and everything.
Yeah, I want to talk about two things. One, the value of working for free, as you're describing. And then two, as you were talking about with Matt, not wanting to kind of abuse the relationship. I think a lot of people in the industry will find themselves directly connected to somebody, maybe not at that level, but at a level that can move the needle and help make some decisions and help kind of things go your way. It's a really terrifying thing to think about, hey, how, when do I ask this person for something? And then let's talk a little bit about that. And then the value of working for free, which I know is controversial, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. I think, first of all, as a responsibility, corporations have a responsibility to pay you for your fucking work. Full stop, right? That I believe. However, I also believe that I saw an opportunity to gain a lot of experience that I couldn't get elsewhere. And so I think that there's a like political, social conversation that can be had about corporations needing to do their fair share. But as an individual, I got a ton of value out of that, and I wouldn't change a freaking thing. There's this incredible book. Don't judge the book by its title. It's called The Go-Giver. But if you are in business in any sort of way, if you're entrepreneurial, if you're trying to figure out your next step, if you're in a transitionary period, you have to read this book. Because the entire premise is that you start every relationship by building that human capital and finding out where you can add value. And I'm telling you, hands down, all of my best relationships, everything that has come from me starting with a give, I never regret that, because there are going to be, and the fear is that someone's going to abuse that. And the truth is people do, and they did, but that doesn't keep me from gaining the value of that experience. And those who don't have that energy and are just trying to time suck you and exploit you for all you're worth, you'll identify those individuals relatively quickly, and you can build a healthy boundary and distance yourself. But for the people who have that like rising tides mentality, and Carrie, I feel like you're definitely in that group of people. You find that you're sharing value. We're having this conversation. We're promoting each other, and then we see that really elevates, and the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So I am not afraid to work below my station. And even like there was this moment on Green Berets Guide. We were shooting in Vancouver, and it was a crazy situation. They fired the showrunner because we were $8 million over budget just on the pilot because the VFX was crazy. And we had to rewrite the whole show. They brought in this incredible executive producer, Scotty Landis. Love that man to death. Adam Newacek, who's a director. His brother Kyle just did the Happy Gilmore 2 movie on Netflix right now. It's amazing. Both of those guys are incredible. But we banded together as a team, and it was just like, we're going to get through this no matter what. And so I will never forget, there was this one day, the crew was just getting the dog shit kicked out of them because it was like inclement weather. We're out on this remote location. We're having to haul this really heavy equipment up these giant hills, and there's only a handful of grips and gaffers. And I broke the union rules, and I went down there and I just started huffing. Like I found the heaviest piece of equipment that I could, and I started carrying it up the hill. And I believe, it was amazing to see the entire team. It was like a re-energizing of the community. And it was a lot of the principles that I learned from the military, but you lead by example. And I think that if you're willing to work below your station, if you know your value, that doesn't actually devalue you. And so if there's someone that is out there and you're looking to get into a new job, a transition into a new thing, you have to read The Go-Giver, and do not be afraid to put in the work, and know that you will show up and you will outperform, and that will be recognized.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're describing is doing it and keeping your head on a swivel, right? It's like what I tell my daughter when we go to the grocery store. I'm like, keep your head on a swivel, be aware of everything that's around you. So it's like, yeah, you can do some free work, but keep your head on a swivel and like understand your new operating environment, right? Like understand who you're working with, who you should keep working with, who you shouldn't keep working with, what value you're bringing, right? Like you're talking about knowing your worth, then also like, what value am I getting out of this? Like, I can't tell you how many times that I've done that exact thing where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this one for free because there's value here. I've also made the mistake where I'm like, I think there's value here. I'm going to do this for free. Hey, turns out there wasn't a ton of value. But then I look back and say, okay, let me step back, kind of expand my focus frame a little bit. Maybe there actually was some value there. I just wasn't exactly where I thought it was going to be or where I saw it at the time. And then you start to strategically map the relationships, but then also your path to kind of put these things where they need to be, on your own journey so that you can kind of keep chucking forward.
Exactly. Like at the end of the day, I think if there's any piece of advice that I could give, it's not about the project. It's not about the TV show. It's not about the movie. It's not about the one thing. It's about the relationship. Because at the end of the day, that human equity, that human capital, that's going to extend far beyond. And I think that's where, honestly, most organizations and individuals, when you're trying to network, right? That's where we mess up, is because we come in and we're thinking it's so much about this thing. But the truth is, it's about the human capital and being there for one another and building that, like building a real relationship with someone, not just a transactional exchange.
Yeah. So on that note, right. So you have the opportunity to be next to Matt Damon here as you're doing this. Like, talk us through your mindset of like, hey, I don't want to overstay my welcome. I don't want to like do too much. I don't want to push too hard because I don't know how to navigate this relationship with an absolute A-lister, right? Like, what's your belief system around that, and how to navigate those kinds of relationships?
The truth is, they're human, first of all. So every human is a human. And I think we really fuck up a lot of times because we forget that at a base level. And like, I don't think, I did not deal with that super well in the beginning. Sean and I would have long conversations, feeling anxiety about what we show, who we ask, how we go about this. And it showed a great deal of care for the relationship and for the things that we were working on. And I think, to be honest, that was one of those lessons that I had to learn, was that it's not about this one thing. It's not about the project, because projects come and go. That show that I made with Matt for Netflix, it got canceled after 3 years of my life being poured into this thing, and then it never aired. And I didn't even know that was possible. We had delivered the episodes. I thought, like, we literally got a call from the agents. Sean, I'll never forget this. He gets a call and they're like, "Are you ready to be a fucking star?" You know what I mean? Like, people are going to dress up like you at Comic-Con, you know, like these crazy expectations. And then 2 weeks later, the whole show got rugged. And I was like, suddenly like, oh, I didn't even realize this was possible, you know? So I think that the big thing is, when you're going to go for an ask, I think it's all about timing. Every situation is kind of unique. But if you have enough human capital, if you've given enough, then you will know when the right time is, and you will feel less anxious about it. And I do believe that there is something to asking, because if you don't ask, how can it come to you? You know, so there's a bit of that, like having confidence in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, who can? But also, you have to be a little bit delusional to believe that you're going to just show up into Hollywood and start selling TV shows. That's fucking crazy, and it never happens. And I feel like, again, I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world, because I just happened to be at the right place, the right time, and I had surrounded myself with the right people. And my hat's off to Sean Vance. Like, dude, love you to death. Like, he truly, incredible Green Beret, really funny dude, currently writing with like Topher Grace and a bunch of other people, like so talented. And he really helped me kind of navigate becoming a normal civilian, because that was a difficult transition for me. I was like, my beard was like down to here. That was my big act of rebellion. It was like, I'm out of the army, I'm never shaving again. And he really helped me like integrate in society. And yeah, totally awesome dude.
You're like, I'm out of the cult, I'm out of the military, I'm having a beard, God damn it.
Yeah, exactly. Hollywood is a cult as well. I would say the third cult, but it's been an upgrade every time. You know, it's a little bit better.
It's a good reminder. It's like the sort of crass example, right, from back in my dating days. It's like the hot girl at the bar. It's like, well, nobody's approaching her because people don't act like she's a human. But if you just treat her like a human, you can actually go have a conversation, right? And I think you have to find yourself in the right room. You definitely have to know your worth and know that you should be in that room. And if you have a request and some things to back it up, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with treating another human being like a human being,
That's right.
and then seeing where it goes, right? Like, don't go in with the expectations that are unrealistic on either side. Don't have the unrealistic expectation that Matt Damon's going to say, hell yeah, let's sell something together. And don't go in with the unrealistic expectation that Matt Damon's going to say, fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think, honestly, the hardest part is to not have expectations. And as a creative, so like kind of getting into the career side of things, you know, we sold a show about Ludmila Pavlyuchenko, a female sniper in World War II who killed 309 Nazis. Such a badass. Like, you know, we created and sold a bunch of shows, and the expectation was always that this is going to be the thing that got made. And very rarely does something get made. And in fact, what I found was really crazy is that in television, especially the old pilot season model, they would buy, I'm going to make it up. Let's say they buy 40 scripts, they make 8 pilots, they decide 2 or 3 of them actually go to air. So you're hearing thousands of pitches. They whittle that down into a handful of scripts that are actually made. Of those 40 scripts, 20 scripts, they're going to make 8 of them. And then of those 8, 3 are actually going to get blessed and end up on television. That's kind of the top-down funnel. So your expectations have to be always that it could happen, but also not that it will be the obvious one to go. And that's a very interesting, it's one of the most interesting conundrums of the creative process, because you have to believe in the idea enough that it could go, but you can't be so attached that if it doesn't go, you feel like you've had this giant loss and, all of that.
Yeah, well, I hate to have set the audience up for a cliffhanger here, but I think what I'm going to have to do is email Steven, get back on your calendar, and we'll have to do a part 2 to release right after this because there's so much more.
We didn't even talk about KINO. I mean, that's so amazing.
I know. So this is what I'm going to do. Let's end it now, and then I'm gonna email Steven. We'll get you back on. We'll do another hour here hopefully soon. We can just release them back to back, so
awesome.
that we're not leaving people hanging too much. But I don't want to cram it into the next 9 minutes. So let's do that. I will. I'll be in touch. We'll get something going, and we'll actually stay on track this time. But I did sincerely love this conversation, and super happy to know you, and super happy to hopefully collaborate on some things here in the future. And man, I'd love to hear other vets that are doing cool things. Let's end the episode with the question I always end. Well, where can folks find you? Where can folks find your work? Tease KINO a little bit, and then I'll ask the open-ended question.
Yeah, you can check out kino.studio, KINO.studio. We have a really cool recommendation algorithm. So if you're looking for something to watch, you're not sure, you can say yo, I'm in the mood to be excited, scared, whatever. You can give it prompts around anything. There's an AI that will help you find what you're looking for. And it's kind of like TikTok. So you can just scroll through if you're looking for a nostalgic horror comedy, and you'll be like Beetlejuice, and you'll scroll and you'll see, Scream or whatever. And then we'll slip in some really great independent films that you've never heard of as well. So you can find all kinds of fun stuff there. You can find me at Daril Fannin, Daril Fannin. That's all my socials. I have lots of opinions on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you can find me. And thank you so much, dude. This has been an incredible conversation. I've been on a few podcasts, and none where I just felt so comfortable and I forgot, the whole purpose of being here to get through this format. Dude, this was amazing. Thank you so much for creating a really cool space for us to be able to chat.
That means a lot, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Excited to quickly follow up here, hopefully, and do a part 2 so we can actually talk about KINO. Daril, to end each episode of the podcast, I ask an open-ended question. What's on your heart and your mind for our community right now? Could be a piece of advice, something you want to get off your chest, or something you want to reiterate that we've talked about today. Daril, what's on your heart? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that we need to reintegrate into society. I love my identity as a veteran, but when I do that, I'm always looking in the rearview mirror as opposed to looking forward. And I have seen so many people, too many of our brothers and sisters take their own lives because they didn't feel like they had something to look forward to. And so no matter how difficult or awful it may seem right now, I promise you there is opportunity on the other side of this. And you have brothers and sisters in your corner, you have friends. So set your sight posts on that 25-meter target and fucking knock it down.
I love it. Well said, brother. Appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate the conversation. We'll chat soon.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for this. This was amazing.
Thanks.